Hello, sleeper. Lay your head upon the quiet earth. Let the noise of the day fade away, like the tide retreating from a lonely shore. You have wandered far through thoughts and hours, through the bright and the burdened, and now it is time to rest. Tonight I will tell you a story of shadow and fire, a beauty that fell and hope that lingered. It is a tale from before memory, from an age when stars were still learning to shine. It is the story of one called Sauron, not the monster of legend, not yet the tyrant of darkness, but something gentler, stranger, a spirit once radiant, whose longing for perfection led him astray. So close your eyes, dear dreamer, breathe slowly, deeply. Let the rhythm of the words carry you, as though upon a slow river through the dark. And when you are ready, let the dream begin. In the dim ages before memory, when the first fires cooled and the stars trembled, newborn in the sky, there was harmony among the makers. They sang into the void, weaving light from silence, shaping form from thought. Their song was vast and endless, and from it came the world. Among their number was one whose craft shone brighter than the others. His name was Mairon, the admirable, wise, subtle, and steadfast. He delighted in order, in the purity of pattern. While others wove rivers and winds, he shaped the bones of the world, the pulse of the mountains, the measure of flame, the rhythm of the forge. He loved perfection, the kind that admits no flaw, no chance, no change. And in that love a seed was sown. For in time, Mairon began to see imperfection everywhere. In the laughter of his kin, he heard discord. In the soft chaos of life, he saw waste. He began to wonder if creation might not be improved. There came then a whisper, low, patient, older than the stars. It spoke not of destruction, but of order, of a world bound in harmony, unbroken by error. The whisper promised him tools, power, and clarity. And Mairon listened. He who had once loved the flame of creation bent now toward the flame of control. He learned to bind, to shape, to rule. And when at last he turned from his kin, the light within him dimmed, not with rage, but with quiet certainty. Thus was born Sauron, the abhorred, beautiful still, terrible in purpose, and calm as nightfall. He became a wanderer, fair of face, soft of speech. Men and elves saw him and found comfort in his words, never guessing that comfort can be a chain. He came among them speaking of balance, of unity, of a peace that would end all fear, and they listened. For deceit rarely shouts, it hums gentle and familiar until it feels like truth. In hidden forges he worked alone. Metal sang to him, and fire obeyed his thought. He fashioned circles of gold and silver, shapes of beauty that shimmered like sunlight upon still water, and from each unseen threads of will stretched outward, thin, invisible, binding. He did not yet call them rings, nor think of them as tools of tyranny. To his mind they were gifts, gifts of order, a way to keep the world from unraveling. But the truth of all making is this: whatever lies in the heart of the maker lives forever in the thing made. And Sauron's heart, though it once sought perfection, now sought control. Thus his craft carried a shadow, soft and deep, that crept unseen into all he touched. He was patient. He waited through ages, through the rise and fall of nameless kingdoms. He watched as mortals grew restless, as they built and broke and built again. And in every ruin he saw opportunity. For the world, he thought, wants to be ruled. And so, in the silence of forgotten years, the first web of deceit was spun. Its strands reached wide, through halls of kings, through hearts of craftsmen, through whispers in the wind. No one saw the weaver, no one felt the silk, but the world was already turning toward him. And as the stars wheeled above, the voice that had once been Mairon's grew softer still, until only one sound remained, the heartbeat of the shadow, slow and patient, beneath the earth. Sleep now, traveler. We drift deeper, past memory, past flame. The story continues. Beneath mountains veiled in cloud, where molten rivers flow unseen, Sauron built his forge, not of stone, but of thought, vast and dark, echoing with dreams of dominion. There he labored, day upon endless day, perfecting his art. Gold bent beneath his hand like water. Iron sang to him like an old friend. He whispered into the fire and it answered. And from that answering came his greatest work, the vision of a single ring to bind all others, to draw their scattered songs into one. Yet he was not yet ready, for deceit must ripen slowly, and trust must be the soil in which it grows. So Sauron went forth once more, cloaked in fair guise, calling himself Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. His voice was gentle, his manner humble. He walked among the elves, the greatest of all craftsmen, and taught them many things. He showed them secrets of forging unknown, even to their lords, and they marveled at his wisdom. To them he spoke of peace, a beauty preserved, of time mastered, of endings undone. And they, weary of loss, listened. Together they forged wonders, jewels that glowed with living light, blades that sang with the wind. But Sauron's gaze was ever on the fire. In every spark he saw his destiny reflected. And when the time was ripe, he whispered to them a new dream, to forge rings of power, not for conquest, but for preservation, a gift for each kingdom, each race, each heart that longed to endure. They believed him. Why should they not? His voice was soft as falling ash, and his eyes held sorrow too deep to doubt. So the elves forged their rings, 3 fair and bright, untouched by his hand. And Sauron returned to his secret forge to make his own. In the heart of Mount Doom, where the fire of the world breathes eternal, he poured himself into the gold, his will, his strength, his very soul. And in that moment he ceased to be Mairon the Admirable forever. The One Ring was born. Its surface shone like sunlight on still water, but within it burned a light that was not light at all, a power that hummed with the pulse of all things living. He lifted it high, and the world trembled, and somewhere far away the stars flickered, as though they too had felt the coming of his dominion. Wonderful, dreamer, let your breathing slow. We drift now into the deeper shadow, the quiet middle of the tale, where power begins to hum softly beneath the surface of the world. Here begins the next movement of your sleep story. The mountain slept in flame. Far below its crown, the molten veins of the earth pulsed and whispered, carrying secrets from the dawn of time. There, in that living heart, Sauron stood, his eyes reflecting the glow of creation itself. He raised the ring once more, and the air bent around him. Words were spoken that had never been meant for mortal ears, a dark litany, a binding song. The ring shuddered, and then, as though it breathed, it glowed. His essence flowed into it, weaving through the metal like blood through veins. In that moment he was everywhere. His will stretched across the lands, thin as mist, unseen yet felt. Those who had forged lesser rings stirred in their sleep, dreaming strange dreams of order, of beauty, of perfect obedience. And the world tilted slightly toward the shadow. But deceit is a fragile thing, dreamer. It thrives only so long as its victims remain unaware. For even the gentlest lie cannot live once light is shone upon it. The elven smiths, wise though trusting, felt the chill. They saw in their bright rings a trembling, a hidden breath not their own. It was as if something far away was listening and waiting. Then they heard it, a whisper in the wind, a faint voice that spoke in a tongue none remembered learning. It said, "One ring to rule them all," and their hearts grew still. In that instant they knew the truth. The fair Lord of Gifts was a mask. The teacher who had smiled beside their forges was gone, if he had ever truly been. The rings upon their fingers burned with invisible fire. They tore them off, cast them away, hid them in secret places. The forges went cold. The laughter of craft became silence. And far away, in the heart of flame, Sauron felt their defiance. He roared, not in anger, but in triumph. For even rebellion could be shaped into obedience, given time. He descended from the mountain clad in darkness, and around him gathered those who had long desired dominion. Kings of men, proud and restless, took his counsel. He spoke to them of eternal rule, of death undone, of power that would not fade. And he gave them rings, 9 of them, each gleaming like sunlight upon still water. They bowed to him, though they did not yet know it. One by one their names faded from the world, replaced by shadows. Their crowns grew pale, their eyes hollow, their voices distant as the sound of dry leaves. And Sauron smiled, for the web was complete. He ruled now through whispers, through longing, through promises never kept, not by the sword, but by the gentle tightening of invisible threads. Yet even as his dominion grew, there lingered a faint disquiet. For power, once taken, does not rest. It gnaws. It hungers. And the one ring, though bound to his will, began to know itself. It pulsed when he spoke. It sighed when he slept. It was alive, an echo of him, and something more. In that golden circle was the reflection of all his dreams and all his ruin, a mirror that could not be shattered. And high above the stars, once the witnesses of his birth, began to dim, veiled by the smoke of his making. Still he called it peace. Still he whispered of order. But the world had begun to bend beneath him. Rivers turned from their courses, forests grew silent, beasts fled from their own shadows. Men built towers of black stone and called them strongholds, but their hearts trembled as they built. For they could feel it too, the breath of a greater will moving through the bones of the world. Thus began the age of dominion, when all things seemed bound to a single purpose. And Sauron, the Smith of Night, stood at its center, radiant and terrible, the master of a perfect, dying order. He'd believed it would last forever, but nothing wrought of deceit endures, not even him. You're doing beautifully, sleeper. Let your eyes stay closed. We'll drift next into the turning, the slow unraveling of the web. All right, dreamer, stay still. Let your thoughts drift like smoke, light and slow, fading into the hush between heartbeats. The story moves now into the heat of its sorrow, the rise of fire, and the tightening of chains. Here begins the next movement of the tale. The world slept beneath his will, a long, deep slumber, neither peace nor freedom, but the silence that follows surrender. Across the plains, dark banners moved like waves upon a windless sea. Towers of blackened stone rose from the dust, their spires crowned with flame. The air itself seemed heavy, thick with the breath of fear, and in the heart of it all stood Sauron, Lord of the Ring, the smith who had bound his soul to gold. He did not rage, he did not shout. His power was quiet, the weight of inevitability. The world bent because it must, because it was easier to bow than to break. Nations that had once sung with bright tongues now whispered their oaths in trembling voices. Their kings, pale beneath golden crowns, obeyed commands they no longer remembered choosing. And in the shadows the nine rode hollow men whose faces the world had forgotten. They were his will made flesh. They were silence on horseback. Yet even in the deepest dark, dreamer embers endure. Among the free peoples, whispers stirred, faint, uncertain, like wind in long grass. Some spoke of resistance, others of hope, but most spoke only in secret, for even words felt watched. And Sauron, from his tower, heard them all. He heard the cries of the dying, the songs of the brave, the prayers of those who no longer believed. All reached him through the ring, the single pulse that beat in time with his own heart. It was life, and it was chain. But chains, even golden ones, grow heavy. The ring fed him strength, yes, but it also fed on him, drinking his essence, tightening its hold. Each act of will deepened the bond, until even Sauron, the master of deceit, began to feel enslaved by his own creation. He would not speak of it, not even to the shadows that served him. But in the deep watches of the night, when the mountain's flame dimmed and the stars dared peer through the smoke, he would lift the ring and stare at its glow. And sometimes, only sometimes, he thought he saw his reflection staring back at him, not the dark lord of dominion, but the craftsman he had once been, Mairon the admirable, the one who had loved beauty and precision and peace. But peace is a fragile dream for those who have known power. He turned away, and the moment was gone. Time passed, though he no longer measured it. Years became centuries, and still he held the world beneath his hand. But the fires of his dominion burned too bright, too long. Even stone wearies of heat. And far away, beyond his reach, a new age stirred, soft and quiet as dawn through mist. Free hearts remembered their songs. Old alliances awoke, and whispers turned vows. From hidden vales and mountain halls, they gathered elves, men, and creatures of the wild, drawn together by a single truth. No chain, however strong, can bind forever. The first battles were small, sparks against the tide. But sparks can find tinder, and soon the darkness flickered. Sauron's armies swept forth like storm clouds, vast and terrible. He unleashed flame, terror, ruin. And yet, for the first time in an age, the world answered. Blades rose, voices cried defiance, and in their rising, the song of freedom, faint and broken though it was, found harmony again. From his tower, Sauron watched it all. He saw his dominion fracture, his perfect order crumble beneath the weight of mortal will. It was not rage he felt, but something colder, disbelief. He had built his empire upon the certainty that all things seek control. But now he saw it, That same desire reflected in those who fought him. They too wished to shape their own world, and in that shared hunger, his perfection unraveled. The war raged on. Flame devoured the plains. The rivers ran red, and in the end, at the very edge of ruin, the armies of the free stood before his gates. The mountain thundered, the air split, and there, amidst the roar of fire and the clash of steel, Sauron came forth. He was vast, a shadow crowned in might. Each step cracked the earth. The ring upon his hand burned like a sun. He raised it high, and the world trembled. Sleep deeper, dreamer, the storm is breaking. When you wake within the dream again, it will be quieter. All right, dreamer, keep breathing softly. We are deep within the dream now, where fire begins to fade, and even the proudest shadow begins to fall. This is the quiet tragedy at the heart of the tale. The mountain burned like a wound in the skin of the world. Its fires clawed at the sky, staining the clouds with crimson light. Below its crown, armies clashed, their cries swallowed by thunder. Steel sang, and the ground trembled with the fury of ending things. And from the black gates, Sauron came. No longer cloaked in fair form, no longer gentle of voice, he was wrath made flesh, the echo of every oath broken, every truth betrayed. The one ring blazed upon his hand, a sun of fire and gold. Each heartbeat sent waves of power rippling across the field, and men fell before him like grass and wind. He struck down kings and champions. He shattered blades that had names older than memory. To look upon him was to see despair given form. But even despair has its end. For there came one, small among the mighty, pale against the storm, bearing no crown, no banner, no power save courage. He did not challenge Sauron in pride or wrath. He came instead with quiet purpose to end what had been begun so long ago. Far away, unseen amidst ash and ruin, he carried a burden, the ring itself, the heart of Sauron's might. And though the Lord of Darkness raged upon the battlefield, the true war was fought in silence, deep beneath the mountain where the world itself began. The ring, sensing its end, trembled. It called to its master, a cry of longing and of fear. Sauron felt it, a tear in his soul, a pulling, a rift that no power could mend. He turned his gaze inward and saw for the first time the chain that bound him. He saw the lie he had forged, the prison he had mistaken for dominion, and in that instant he faltered. High above the plain the wind paused, the fire dimmed. Even time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, in the depths of the mountain, the ring was claimed, not by strength, but by chance, by the trembling hand of a creature forgotten by the world. It slipped into fire, and as it melted, so too did all that Sauron was. The sound that followed was not a scream, but a sigh, long, weary, almost peaceful. The great dark shape upon the field wavered, thinned, and was gone. The sky cracked open. The mountain erupted, hurling light into the dark. The earth shuddered, the towers fell, the banners burned to ash, and the shadow that had blanketed the world for ages drifted apart, not vanquished by sword or flame, but undone by its own weight. For deceit, dreamer, cannot live forever. It consumes all, even itself. The armies of the free stood still, uncertain. They watched as dawn touched the horizon for the first time in many years. The air smelled of rain, not smoke, and somewhere, Beneath the ruin and the silence, the world began to breathe again. In that breath was sorrow, yes, for what had been lost, but also a quiet, fragile hope, the kind that grows only in the ashes of pride. And as the wind carried the last echo of his name away, Sauron's spirit, unmoored from its golden prison, drifted into the void, unseen, unwept, and at last at peace. Rest now, sleeper. The fires have cooled. The war has ended. All that remains is quiet. The world lies hushed beneath the gentle cloak of dawn. Smoke curls upward, thin and gray, and in its trails the first birds dare sing again. The mountains stand watch, ancient and tired, their crowns silvered by light. In the valleys, green begins to stir. The rivers, long choked by ash, run clear once more. And everywhere there is the scent of new beginnings, faint, uncertain, yet real. No songs are sung for the fallen lord. No monuments rise for the hand that once shaped the world. But the echo of him remains, not as terror, but as warning. For every heart, even the gentlest, can hunger for perfection. Every maker, even the purest, can fall in love with control. And from that love, the shadow grows. Yet, even so, the light endures. The makers sing still, somewhere beyond hearing. Their song is quieter now, more fragile, more wise. It speaks of balance, of humility, of the beauty that lives in imperfection. And if you listen closely in the stillness before sleep, you may hear it too. A faint melody rising and falling with your breath, the song of things reborn. So rest down, dreamer. Let the last ember fade from your thoughts. Let the darkness be soft again. No longer the prison of the proud, but the cradle of peace. For all stories end as they began, in silence, in shadow, in sleep. And somewhere, deep within the quiet heart of the world, the forge grows cold, and the night at last forgives the dawn.